Welcome, everyone, to the Rotary Club of Fort Worth. It feels so great to feel the energy happening here in the Horizon Room. And isn't it great? To everyone in person, we're so happy you're here. To everyone watching out on Zoom, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Fort Worth. My name is Carlo Capio. I am honored to be the president of this club, and it is now my honor to welcome Jared Sloan, Operations Director of Shoot Smart, for our invocation, followed by our national anthem. Jared?
Thank you, Carlo. I'll share something a little personal and from the heart today. Today, I'm thankful for the 10th anniversary of my business. We opened 10 years ago today, March 26th, 2011. That day, we opened our doors for the first time, a culmination of months of hard work and years of dreams. Today, many of us are thinking about the path of our great city for the next 10 years. And we're blessed with so many opportunities before us, not least of which is represented by our esteemed guest here today. But opportunities like dreams are little more than open doors. What defines us are our actions when the moment beckons. How will we Rotarians shape that future? I wonder. I'm reminded of a poem by my favorite poet, Shel Silverstein, all the woulda, coulda, shouldas, laying in the sun, talking about the things they woulda, coulda, shoulda done. But those woulda, coulda, shouldas all ran away and hid from one little did. As we gather here today as members of Rotary and of this community, let us commit to action every day hence to make a better city, a better state, a better country, a better world for us all. Amen.
Thank you. You may be seated. We'd like to especially thank our generous sponsors today. Special thanks to Downtown Fort Worth, Inc., Rotary Past President Andy Taft. Andy, where are you? Would you please stand and be recognized, Andy? Where's Andy? Thank you, Andy. And for any of you DFWI board members or advocates who are watching, we'd love to have you visit us in person here at Rotary, so feel free to join and be a guest of us in person. We'd also like to thank the Texas A&M University Office of the Provost, Public Partnership and Outreach. We have with us Rotarian Casey Oliver. Casey, thank you so much for your support and for the Office of the Provost. A round of applause for the Office of the Provost of Texas A&M University. I'm also told that today is, or yesterday was a special day for one of our advocates from Texas A&M, Dean Bobby Adier. Bobby, I believe yesterday was the 2nd anniversary of your 25th birthday. So happy late birthday to you, Dean Adier. All right, for those of you who may be your first time here to Rotary, our hallmark is what we call the 4-way test. And at every meeting, we recite this as a reminder of the things that we think, that we say, or we do. So will you say with me, rule number 1, is it the truth? Number 2, is it fair to all concerned? Number 3, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And number 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you. Now it is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Kim McQuistion, Vice President and Dean of Tarleton State University in Fort Worth, to welcome our visiting Rotarians and guests. Dr. McQuistion.
Thank you, President Carter. Well, welcome to everyone joining us in person and on Zoom today. If you are on Zoom, you can't see how large the audience is here, but I feel like I have a free pass because I don't have to introduce everyone today. So we have about 30 guests here in person and even more joining us online. And so if you are a guest of Rotary here today, would you please stand so that we can recognize you? And as is our tradition, if you are joining by Zoom, please feel free to introduce yourself via the chat. Thank you, everyone. We're looking forward to a great program from Chancellor Sharp. Thanks, Carlo.
Thank you, Dr. McQuistion. We're so happy to have you as one of the newest members of our Rotary Club. Now, folks, if you're unfamiliar with Rotary, we do something special here at the Rotary Club of Fort Worth called the newscast. It's well, we'll just let you listen and figure it out. So please give a very Rotary newscast welcome to John Wright, President of Simple Leadership Strategies.
Thank you, President Carlo. My first news item would be best delivered Rodney Dangerfield style. I'll tell you, you just can't trust those health experts. They came out with an article last week that said the safest way to shop at Walmart is with a mask and gloves. I went out to Walmart yesterday with a mask and gloves. Everybody else was wearing clothes. I'll tell you, good news. Cases are down. The 30-day average compared to the 7-day average is down 40%. Isn't that great news? I was going to tell you a coronavirus joke, but I'm not, because it might take up to 2 weeks for you to get it. Last week, President Biden had a news conference. He referred to himself to the vice president as President Harris. They're on the same page because the vice president referred to the administration not as the Biden-Harris administration, but as the Harris-Biden administration. Now, I don't know if a male president and a female vice president is anything like a marriage, but if it is, we really know who's calling the shots at the White House. Now, Gallup came out with a report last week on well-being, speaking of marriage, and said that married people are happier than single people. Now, they said they didn't know if it's marriage that made people happy or if happier people are more likely to get married. But they did say one data was for sure, data point, and that is that married men live longer than single men. So for all the single guys out there, if you want to die a long, slow death, get married. I'm kidding. It's good. I hope Karen doesn't see this. Karen and I have been happily married for 35 years. Actually, we've been married for 49, but only 35 were happy. In education, 50% of students are back to school face-to-face. That's good news, isn't it? I think it's really good because I think for some of those parents, it was pretty stressful, running a job and teaching their kids. My daughter started talking to herself. My son-in-law saw her do that the other day and he said, "Are you talking to yourself?" She said, "No, I'm having a parent-teacher conference." The lockdown, now that it's over, they have reported that, there are some mental health issues that has come out of that. I've seen that firsthand. I went to get mail yesterday. I saw the lady across the street. She was talking to her cat like the cat actually understood what she was saying. I went in and told my dog. We had a big laugh about that. All right, Texas got one step closer to making a law that says alcohol to go will be legal. That's pretty good. The restaurant people, they're all pretty excited about that. The reason I think it's good is because the CDC has said, even though we're opening up again, we got to be careful and we got to practice all the good practices that we had in the past. And I personally think the best way to not touch your face is to have a cocktail glass in each hand. Don Marable, do you agree with that? Sid, I know you do. All right. And finally, I've had a special request, but I'm singing anyway. President Carlo said, try to put something positive in here. And so it's just 36 seconds, but it's a Frank Sinatra tune. And it's my very favorite expression. So I want to leave you with this message. This kid's got guts. Out of the tree of life, I just picked me a plum. You came along, then everything started into hum. Still, it's a real good bet. The best is yet to come. It's been a rough year, folks, but the best is yet to come. God bless you and God bless Fort Worth.
Thank you, John. That was just what we needed. Except for a couple of those jokes, but mostly just what we needed. It's now my pleasure to welcome Mr. Elliot Goldman for a Rotary Club grant update. Elliot is the founder of GL2 Partners. Elliot?
Thank you, President Carlo. I just wanted to let everyone know that the deadline for the Rotary grant applications are due April 15th. We have roughly $13,000 in the endowment fund and around $20,000 in the children's fund, up to those amounts to allocate. Applications are on the website. They're a little hard to find. They're under the first tab, but you go down and it'll download. It tells you exactly what you need to do. We look forward to seeing the applications and letting you know how it goes. Thanks. Thank you, President Carlo.
Thank you, Elliot. You know, one of my favorite parts is welcoming the new members that we have that make up this vibrant club. And one of our new members we have today is Lisa Brown. Lisa is a certified fundraising executive and has been with the Texas Health Resources Foundation since 2007. And Lisa, we're going to spotlight you as I say some nice things about you. Lisa joins our club actually as a transfer from the Rotary Club of Arlington. She is also a member of the HEB Chamber and the Association of Fundraising Professionals. She feels that Rotary has been a wonderful opportunity to plug into the global network of fellow Rotarians, put service above self, and create lasting change. And in Rotary tradition, I am honored to welcome Lisa to our virtual podium today. So Lisa, feel free to unmute and tell us something unique or interesting about yourself.
Thank you, President Carlo. I'm so excited to be part of the club and will miss my friends at the Arlington Club, but excited for what's to come in Fort Worth. So a fun fact is my family and I love to travel. And one of the places we visit a lot is Disney World. We were actually there last week for spring break. So the fun fact is I've actually been to Disney World over 50 times. We've traveled to a lot of other places as well, but Disney is definitely a favorite for my family. Anyway, look forward to meeting more of you soon. Thank you, Carlo.
Thank you, Lisa. A round of applause for Lisa, our newest member. And if you've been to Disney World more than 50 times, you have burned into your brain, it's a small world after all. But now it's time to spotlight one of our other members. We have Karen Telschow Johnson. She is the owner and principal of Telschow Johnson Law PLLC. She's been a member of 2013, but folks, more important, she is a proud graduate of Texas A&M University. Karen?
Thank you, President Carlo. I'm Karen Telschow Johnson. I did join Rotary in May of 2013 when Libby Watson was insistent of my needing to be more social and to get out of the office more. Oh, those were the days, as we are now racing to get out of our homes and offices. But don't rush too fast, because as an estate planning, probate, and elder law attorney, I will tell you, COVID's still here. So just be careful. I'm glad we're all getting out more, but still be safe. I'm a fine Texas Aggie graduate from its home and college station to its law school here in Fort Worth, and I bleed maroon. Woo! So welcome, Chancellor Sharp. Welcome, Mayor Price. Both of my brothers also graduated Texas A&M University and were in the Corps of Cadets. My older brother was in Squadron 4, Phantom 4. My younger brother was in Spider M, also known as M2. My parents said that with 3 Aggies, they should qualify for handicap parking. Even with that, we added more to the Aggie family as my niece will graduate this May from Texas A&M University, and my nephew was just awarded a full Marine scholarship and will begin his attendance in the fall. I'm a proud mom of a son who is about to graduate from Haskell High School. And no, unfortunately not. But he's got 8 schools and we'll hear in the next week and a half, and then we'll see where after that. My daughter enjoys life and her very large husky in Austin. I tried to get her to go to College Station. Anyway, in 2019, I traveled to Italy and I traveled to Israel and have climbed to the highest point in Texas, Guadalupe Peak, and I look forward to a post-COVID world of travel again. Some of you also know that I enjoy writing, and on Fridays, I post on Instagram and Facebook about shifting from the busy work week into the Sabbath. So Shabbat Shalom, and for those celebrating Passover beginning tomorrow night, Chag Pesach Sameach. Thank you, President Carlo.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. You know, folks, a wise man once said, "Gig 'em." And to lead us in an Aggie tribute today, it is my pleasure to welcome that wise man. Please help me welcome Don Marable, CFP and general partner of Edward Jones Investments, for an Aggie tribute. Don? Is that like the newscast clap there, John?
So I want everybody to be honorary Aggies for a day, and let's help Chancellor Sharp feel really welcome. When Aggies get together, it is tradition that the speaker will come out and say, "Howdy, Ags," and then everybody in the room will reply, "Howdy." So let's give it a shot. Howdy, Ags. Howdy. Ooh, that feels good. So it's been said about A&M, from the outside looking in, you can't understand, and from the inside looking out, I can't explain it. But I'm going to try my best to do some of that today and explain some of the mysteries about why we are such a cult. I came across being an Aggie real honestly. That's me, age 5, 1964. I was living in married student housing on the Texas A&M campus. I cannot tell you at the podium what they called married student housing at the time. I went to a kindergarten called Wee Aggie Land, and every Friday we wore the Corps uniforms. So yes, at one time in my life, I was actually cute. So A&M was the first university established in the state of Texas. It's part of the Morrill Act that happened in 1862. 5,200 acres was donated, and the college was actually established in 1876. And at first, it was an all-male, all-military institution. It was originally going to be in Bryan, Texas, and all the folks in Bryan, Texas said, "Oh, no. You're not going to bring these boys here to chase our women. Move them eight miles down the train tracks." They went down the tracks 8 miles, and the station was College Station. That's how College Station got its name. Earl Rudder was one of our key presidents. For those that aren't familiar with, if you've ever watched D-Day and the guys that scaled the cliffs, Earl Rudder was the leader of that group. They were called Rudder's Rangers. They scaled a 100-foot cliff. They held their position on those cliffs for 48 hours. Rudder was wounded twice during the battle. He left the D-Day invasion, convalesced, and rejoined just in time to join the Battle of the Bulge. As president of Texas A&M, he was the president that fully admitted women and also made the Corps an optional event where you didn't have to join the Corps. After that, the university really flourished, and now A&M is one of the 3 schools in the state of Texas rated as a Tier 1 school. The Corps Cadets. Corps Cadets is still the largest uniform body outside of West Point, the Naval Academy, and the Air Force Academy. Corps Cadets are often referred to as the keeper of the traditions, or the keepers of the spirit and the guardians of the tradition. During World War II, over 14,000 officers were commissioned to go to World War II. That's more than West Point and the Naval Academy combined. In fact, they went to 3 semesters per year so they could graduate our kids a year and a half earlier to get them to World War II. Of course, then there's the Aggie Ring. Everybody knows about those. The first one was in 1889. They were standardized in 1933. From 1933 to 1966, they remained unchanged. In 1963, the Texas legislature renamed Texas A&M from Texas A&M College to Texas A&M University. 1965 is what they call the option year. And everybody in classes in 1965 had the option of either keeping college or university on their ring. So every ring 66 forward now says university. My dad is class of 65 and his ring says college. By the way, my mom's class of 70, she was real happy that she got in. Let's talk about the century tree. This is one of the first trees that was planted on the A&M campus. It is well over 100 years old. And tradition has it that if you walk with somebody under the tree while you're holding hands or arm in arm, that eventually you will get married. And if you propose to somebody underneath the century tree, your marriage will last forever. Reveille. Reveille, like all other traditions, kind of started with an accident. There were a couple of cadets in 1930 that were coming home from, let's say, some extracurricular activities in Navasota. And on their way back, they hit a dog. And the dog wasn't critically injured, but it was roughed up a little bit. So they decided to take the dog back to their dorm rooms and clean it up and bandage it and stuff. Well, dogs weren't allowed in the dorms back then. The next morning when the bugler went out to trumpet reveille, the dog started barking. Of course, these guys got busted, and I'm sure they had to do a lot of push-ups and run a lot, but that was how reveille got its name. So the first reveille was that dog that got hit by the car. When that dog died in 1944, it got a full military burial, including a 21-gun salute. This is Reveille 9. Reveille 9 has been in service since 2015. And this corporal is a sophomore with E2. Since 1960, Reveille has been assigned each year to a corporal in Unit E2, and E2 guards the dog 24/7, 365. Some people argue that Reveille is the smartest mascot because in the States, because Reveille goes to classes with the cadets. And tradition has it if Reveille barks during the class, that class is dismissed. It's true. And the reason is because Reveille is bored. So this is Lawrence Sullivan Ross. Everybody calls him Sully. He was the president of Texas A&M from 1881 to 1889. He had a real passion for the students. And he went to great lengths to help them graduate. And he oftentimes helped them with their homework, prepped them for tests. And the kids would say, well, what can I do to repay you for all the help you've given me? And his reply was always the same. How about a penny for your thoughts? So to this day, each semester, when kids have a big test or a big project or some sort of big presentation, they'll go by Sully and they'll put pennies, quarters, sometimes dollar bills if they get a whole lot of luck. They'll even put gift cards on the statue of Sully. And it'll accumulate and get bigger and bigger throughout the entire semester. At the end of each semester, whatever money is on Sully is taken and given to local charities. E. King Gill, the 12th man. So January 2, 1922, Texas A&M was playing the ever vaunted Center College Praying Colonels. And they were heavily favored, and frankly, they were roughing us up pretty bad. E. King Gill was on the practice squad. He was actually up in the announcer's booth, helping the announcers identify players on the field. We got so banged up that Dana Bible, the coach of A&M at the time, he called King out of the press box, brought him down to the sidelines, and King and one of the injured players went behind the bleachers, and underneath the bleachers traded clothes. So King was fully uniformed, stood by the coaches the whole game ready to go in. He actually never played, but it created the 12th man tradition, which still carries on today because the entire student body stands for every ball game, symbolic that we're ready to go in and play. And then finally, all traditions must carry on. Those are my two boys, age 5, and that's the same uniform that I was wearing. They are class of 23, class of 24 at A&M right now today. Thanks a lot.
Well, folks, I'm afraid that's all the time we have today. I'd like to thank our program, Don Marable. And Don, really, that was great. And thank you for adhering to that strict 3-minute time limit we gave you. So, well, folks, it's a tradition of the Rotary Club when we have a special guest speaker to have a dignitary introduce them. And they say that the people who have the longest introductions are the ones who need them the most. So with that being said, please welcome Mayor Betsy Price.
Howdy. Chancellor, that's what I always say everywhere I go, and they knew the drill to say back, but it's even more appropriate with you here today. You know, it's good to see you all. Isn't it great to be in person? And there we got great people on Zoom, but isn't it great to have our friends here? I just love it. I'm honored to have the opportunity to introduce my friend and your friend, Chancellor John Sharp, and to welcome you to Fort Worth. We're so glad you're here. John became Chancellor of A&M in 2011. It must have been a great year. It's the same year I became Mayor of Fort Worth. And we've been a long way since then. It's been quite a decade, right? John is a committed public service with an incredible record. He served in the Texas House, Texas Senate, Railroad Commission, and is our comptroller. I guess he was looking for the perfect spot. He's landed there now as Chancellor. Chancellor Sharp has a great love for this state of Texas, and he never does anything that he's not passionate about. But he's particularly passionate about A&M, and you will hear that today. He talks about the Aggies everywhere he goes, and that's why he loves Fort Worth, because we are home to so many Aggies, and we're very much Aggie country. Help me give Chancellor Sharp a warm Fort Worth welcome.
Howdy. Well, it is always great to be introduced by the best mayor in the state of Texas, and that ain't no kidding. I think the last time that I spoke to this group, D. Kelly introduced me, and I still miss him. I love D. Kelly. I've never loved another man except my father, but D. Kelly I loved. He taught me everything he knows. Unfortunately, he taught me everything I know. Unfortunately, he didn't teach me everything he knows. But Dee was a wonderful human being, and I still miss him to this day. I wanted to talk a little bit about, I got one of my bosses here, so please help me welcome one of my regents, Bill Mahomes, from right outside of Fort Worth, Texas, I think Dallas. We also have two regions from Fort Worth. We don't have a city in the country that has more regions than Fort Worth. We have Bob Albritton from Fort Worth, and also have Mike Hernandez from Fort Worth. We have some important people here, obviously. Bobby over here. You know, I always have hell with his name. IDA is the name, but he pronounces it different when he has a mask on. We also we have Leyland Copeland, who lives in Fort Worth, who is my public relations guy. He's the most brilliant guy. Actually, he gave me so much hell when I was in politics, I hired him to get him off the street. And we have Kathleen Gibson, who is head of our A&M Foundation, who just completed the largest university campaign in the history of Texas, $4.3 billion raised. Kathleen, thank you for what you do. And, you know, I'm a little bit disappointed that Ross Perot didn't show up. He told me he was going to come, and he called me about 5 minutes ago and said, no, I can't come. And the reason is I want to clear something up. You think Ross Perot is famous because he flew a helicopter around the world, because he has Alliance Airport and all that stuff. No, he is famous because he introduced to the United Kingdom what has been called by 5 British tabloids the best joke ever told in the British Isles. And it's my joke. I was hunting with Perot about 5 years ago, and we were drinking a little bit. And I came up with this joke, and I told him, and he goes and gives a speech to Parliament, and they go crazy. And the other day I was watching the show Crown, and there is my bear joke on Crown. And I called Perot and said, how did this happen? He said, oh, I took it over there. I told it to Perot. And I said, did you give me some credit so I could be Sir John Sharp or something like that? He said, no, I'm famous over there for that. And so I'm going to tell you this joke. I'm going to try to clean it up a little bit, but I want you to hear the best joke ever told in the United Kingdom that was invented in McAllen, Texas by me. And so if you ever hear Perot tell it, just remember it's not. So if it offends you, you know, if I was elected official, I would give a damn, but I'm not anymore. But so this guy goes out bear hunting, and this bear walks in front of him. He's got a 30-06, and boom, he shoots the bear in the arm, and the bear comes over to him and grabs him by the throat and said, hey, buddy, you trying to kill me? I'm going to kill you. And the guy says, please don't. I've got grandchildren. I'm the only breadwinner of the family. He begged him, said, okay, I won't kill you, but I got to make sure you remember this. I'm going to have my way with you. And so he did. And the guy was just terribly embarrassed. He goes back to the hotel, and he just has revenge in his heart. And he buys a 7 mag and goes out the next day. And here comes the bear walking by. And the bear has his arm in a sling and trying to pick a few berries, get something to eat. Boom, shoots him in the leg. The bear comes over and said, I thought we had a deal, Bubba. Said, you know, you trying to kill me again? And he said, please don't kill me. I don't know what got into me. I'll never do this again. So he said, well, we're going to go through the same deal again. Said, I'm going to have my way with you again. And the guy went back to his hotel room, and he was just mortified. And he comes back and buys a 300 Weatherby. And here comes the bear, got his arm in a sling, crutches, walking through the woods, trying to get by. The guy, boom, shoots at him and hits a tree. The bear walks over to him, puts his arm on his shoulder and smiles at him, said, this ain't about hunting, is it, Bubba? So anyway, so if you hear Perot tell this joke, he had nothing to do with it except spreading it to other people. I'll get serious in a minute, but you know, Betsy, we're all getting just hundreds of millions of dollars from the federal government, and they print it. I don't know how much the city or the county got, but I'm guessing you got $500 million or something like that. We got $200 or $300 billion. I would remind you of something that I was told a long time ago, and it was something that happened in Victoria, in my hometown, and there was this guy named Mr. Kaliba, and he had a dog named Zeke. And he was taking Zeke, you know, seeing eye dog, and was taking him through town. And he stopped at the corner of Constitution and Main, and the dog hadn't taken him to a fire hydrant or anything, and the dog sort of ruined his brand new suit that he just bought at Melvin's Globe Clothiers. And the guy reaches in his pocket, the blind man, and gives the dog biscuit to the dog. And across the street, there is the only member of the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals that we had in Victoria. And she said, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. You love and depend on that dog so much that even though he wet on your leg and ruined your brand new suit, you gave him a dog biscuit. And she's hugging and kissing him. Finally, she pushes him away. He pushes her away and says, look, there's something I need to explain to you. The reason I gave this dog a dog biscuit after he wet all over my leg, ruined my new suit, was to find out where his head was so I could kick his ass. And remember to be cautious of federal dog biscuits, or the same thing will happen to you. I want to talk a little bit about some of the assets that we have here. First of all, the law school. When I first went to D. Kelly about 9 years ago, and if it weren't for D. Kelly, Beverly Powell, your Congresswoman, Kay Granger, and Slabach, all 4 of those, it never would have happened. But they had the vision to say, let's give this a shot. And I'm so proud of what's happened at law school. One of the things that D. Kelly said, if you ever move it out of Fort Worth, I want my $1 million back, I want my bus back, and I want everything else. And I said, D, we will never move that law school out of Fort Worth. I said, can you imagine trying to get law school interns in College Station? It doesn't work. And we are so happy to be here. What we have discovered, and I think we probably knew it before this, what we have discovered is this is our kind of town. This is an Aggie kind of town. We love this place. And what I'm going to talk to you today about is how we're trying to expand our presence here and be as big and as big a fixture we can within the Fort Worth economy. But what's happened to that law school has moved faster up in the rankings than any law school in the history of the United States of America. On next Wednesday, when U.S. News comes out with their new reports, it's passed most of the law schools in Texas. It will pass Baylor and University of Houston Law School next Wednesday. There will only be two. There will only be two law schools, and that's SMU, and that's probably next year, and a small law school in Austin, who we're working on that as well. But it's top 20 in the nation on postgraduate employment. The applications at this law school are triple the national average. There's so many young men and women trying to get in. It's no longer an easy place to get in. But it will be ranked 52nd in the nation. I think when we got it, it was somewhere around 400, something like that. And so congratulations, Bobby, and your crew for everything you've done in that law school. We're also real proud of Tarleton State University. James Hurley is our president right back there with the purple tie on, showing his colors. He's a great new president of this university. And as you know, we have now built a campus in the city of Fort Worth for that university. We expect that campus within the next 8 to 10 years, Kim, to be around 8,000 to 10,000 students there. We have a wonderful relationship with Tarrant County College, and the folks that are over there have been just wonderful, as has the mayor with and the city council with roads and all the everything we've ever asked for, we have gotten, and that is going to be a huge asset to Fort Worth and for this area as well. And we're real proud of what's happening over there. I want to talk a little bit about what Mayor and John Goff in particular have done. They came to us some time ago and said, you know, why don't we see what else we can do with regard to Fort Worth? And we're certainly open to that deal because, I mean, we're sort of thinking Aggie land north here because we want to see exactly what we can do in the Fort Worth community with the assets that are here and the assets that we have in College Station and moving here. For instance, since that discussion, we have already created a master research agreement with Lockheed Martin. We have created a master research agreement with Alliance Airport, with Lockheed Martin. They'll use assets like hypersonics. And let me sort of explain. There's another thing that's going to happen with U.S. News and World Report. I hope I don't offend anybody here. I know at least one person that has a mask on that I'll offend. And that is that for next Wednesday, for the first time in the history of the state of Texas, Texas A&M Engineering will pass University of Texas Engineering. We will be number 11 in the nation, and that other school in Austin will be number 12. And so we're happy about that. You can go ahead and applaud if you want. I bet that makes the Austin paper. And so anyway, let me tell you about hypersonics. So we created on a campus just outside of Texas A&M on an old Air Force base about 3 or 4 years ago, something called the Rellis campus. Rellis is not the name of a person. It's the 6 core values of A&M: respect, excellence, leadership, loyalty, integrity, selfless service. And in that, we created something called the BCDC, which is when the Army Futures Command came to Texas, we wanted to be their research arm. And so the legislature helped us create the Bush Combat Development Center. And in that center is going to be the research elements of a lot of defense contractors, and Lockheed, of course, being one of those. We recruited people because the real key that the Army assigned us was hypersonics weaponry. Chinese, there's concern that the Chinese are ahead of us. That's weaponry, that's missiles, that's vehicles that go faster than 15,000 miles an hour. And when you go that fast, it tends to melt in the atmosphere. And so you need to figure out how you can keep it together. And so we put together a whole bunch of folks that, and recruited a bunch of folks that were the best in the nation on that. And last month, the Department of Defense, in a contest with 150 different universities, including MIT, including Georgia Tech, including Notre Dame and Purdue, which are experts in this field, they chose Texas A&M University Engineering as the place to develop the research for the hypersonic weapons of this country. One of the reasons they did that also is that 2 years before, the Department of Energy chose Texas A&M as the university to run Los Alamos National Lab. And so we're also kind of in charge of the nuclear weapons stockpile that exists in Los Alamos. So if you have people that you really don't like very much, let me know. We got ways to take care of this. But hypersonics, A&M will be the lead in that. And so we'll determine who it is that we partner with, which other universities we partner with in hypersonics. Well, that is right up Lockheed Martin's alley. I mean, if they're not the best and the one with the biggest head start in this, I don't know who would be second. And so we don't want to be friendly with Lockheed Martin. We want to marry the people. I mean, they are exactly what we're looking for in terms of research and things like that. So we've executed that master research agreement with those folks. We also have at Alliance Airport, the master research agreement that stemmed from our first meetings with Betsy and John has to do with robotics for Perot and his folks, how autonomous vehicles, all kinds of things, including autonomous drones and things like that will be used at Alliance Airport to better facilitate the movement of supplies and people in that part of the deal. We're also, that master research agreement with Lockheed concerns directed energy, which is nothing more than lasers. We are building, as we speak, the largest hypersonics tunnel at that campus at Texas A&M, which is going to be the place that Lockheed or whoever can shoot weaponry, shoot particles down it at 15,000 miles an hour or greater, photograph it and see if it holds together. We're hoping to build an arc heater, which is something that heats that particle up to the same heat that it would be if it were traveling at that particular speed and holding together. And so we're real proud of those two things, but we're also talking to a couple of other companies here as well. Let me talk a little bit about A&M engineering with regard to some other things too. That is the largest engineering school in the country. And people thought, well, golly, when you get to 23,000 students, you understand a third of the students at A&M are engineers. And there are a lot of people that think, gosh, if you get that big, it can't be that good. Well, obviously we proved that wrong because of what's happened to the rankings with regard to that. But it also, with regard to hypersonics and several other things, there's also a whole lot of work being done on autonomous vehicles, autonomous weaponry for the Army and all kinds of things like that. Alliance, Texas, I mentioned that, but we're also talking to Bell Textron and Alcon for their eye care things and all of the things they're doing with regard to master research agreements as well. A little bit about A&M. We have just passed, we've done something this year that for the first time in history, a university in the state of Texas has passed $1 billion in research. We did last year $1.3 billion in research. The next university to us is somewhere around 600 million, something like that. And so we don't just have great students, and we do, and that is my pride and joy. And you asked the question, so what's the difference between A&M students and some of the others? And I would say, well, our students aren't common pinkos, first of all. I mean, it is the most amazing student body you have ever seen in your life. I mean, to go out there this weekend, you go out there tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., there will be 25,000 students at an event called the Big Event, 25,000 with no parents there, that will go out and paint fences for old folks and disabled folks, that will clean up their yards, haul off their trash, and do that stuff all weekend, totally 100% organized by students. It is the most religious student body you have ever seen in your life. I don't know if you know it, but A&M is the largest Catholic university in the United States of America. There are 17,000 Catholic students there, and they have an unbelievable center there. But these kids are patriotic, they are about public service, and they absolutely love each other. And it translates back to the former students, and it stays with all of us as we try to impart that same thing to this student body. They are absolutely incredible young men and women. When you talk to people that have hired an Aggie engineer or anything else, they will be the first to tell you that they're the first in the office and they're the last to leave at night. It is an ethic. We have no clue what we do to do this. We don't know if it's something that was imparted 100 years ago or God just made it happen, but we are damn proud of these young men and women and for what they produce for the state of Texas. We also have something that we're going to talk to the Tarrant County College about. In our College of Engineering, we started something called the Engineering Academy. And what this was aimed at is young men and women who are smart as heck, but for some reason couldn't afford to maybe leave Fort Worth or couldn't afford to leave Dallas or wherever they were because of something maybe happened in their family. They had to stay with mom and dad, or maybe they just didn't have the money. Maybe they had a scholarship for tuition, but they didn't have a scholarship for room and board, and they couldn't afford to leave, but they ought to be at A&M or UT or one of these schools because they're so good. And so we started something called the Engineering Academy, and we have it in Dallas Community College, we have it in Houston Community College, Alamo Community College, and Midland. And what that is we send, and we're going to talk, we've talked some already, but we're going to talk to Tarrant County College about it. We send engineering professors to your community college, and we admit these young men and women as fully fledged students of A&M. If they wanted to, they go to football games and the whole bit. They also are fully fledged students of the community college. And we send professors from Texas A&M to that community college to teach engineering to those kids while the community college teaches the rest of the course. And then they go on the third year after saving $10,000 or $20,000 or $20,000 or $30,000. They are fully admitted without any problems as juniors in the engineering program. What we have found, despite the critics, is those kids have higher GPAs than the rest of the engineering school that is there because of the great relationship with those community colleges, and it just saves them a ton of money. And so one of the things that we want to be a part of this, or I certainly want to be a part of this with the president of Tarrant County, is to look at putting in those engineering academies there as well. We're also talking to John's Fort Worth Botanical Gardens with Agrilife, Omni Hotels about culinary and hospitality programs here in Fort Worth, your Blue Zone Project and John's Canyon Ranch Project and others. Our Health Science Center is talking to both public and private folks about students, healthcare, with our medical school and things like that. And I think just the bottom line is we're exploring, because of this great idea that your mayor had and John and several of you in this room had, we're exploring everything we possibly can to create or recreate here in Fort Worth, a place that we feel very loved, quite frankly, as much research and as much academic enterprise as we possibly can. And so we're at the point now where we have talked to a whole bunch of folks. We're pulling things together, and hopefully in the next month or so, we'll be able to do something very, very special. Now, let me tell you about Agrilife and why Agrilife is important. And also, I'm talking to Ramon a little bit about whether or not maybe we can use some of the vet school interns to come over and work at the zoo and some of those things like that. Don't want to leave Ramona out. Don't want Ramona mad at me. Okay. But let me tell you about Agrilife and just what a big deal this is. So we're all familiar with the food pyramid, right? That's the thing that the federal government gave us when we were children that made us all have heart attacks and made us all obese, and basically has given us diabetes and everything else. Everybody knows, including the USDA and the people that invent it, that it's a bunch of bull, that it doesn't work. That they feed us too many carbohydrates, too many processed foods, and all of these kinds of things. The only people that actually believe this stuff are the people at Harvard that did the research for it, which is, as you might recall, I got in a little fight with Harvard not so long ago. But some of these other schools, when they do research on nutrition, it is funded by people that don't really have anything to do with nutrition. It's funded by animal rights activists. And I have no problem with animal rights activists, but I don't want to eat my food based on somebody being offended that I killed a cow. And it's funded by vegetarians. I have no problem if you're a vegetarian. I just don't want you to tell me that I should be a vegetarian just because you are. I want it based on what is good stuff to put in my body and my children's body and my grandchildren's body that will keep me healthy. And that's what's missing. And so the United States Department of Agriculture decided that because of the research, and the largest research of any university in agriculture and nutrition is at Texas A&M, and we hired a guy from Ithaca, New York, that is one of the best nutritionists in the country. His name is Patrick Stover, and he's now the Dean and Vice Chancellor of Agriculture. And he has been working with USDA. In the COVID relief bill this last time, there is $20 million a year of perpetual money, which means you have to pass another bill to stop the money. And that money was announced by USDA yesterday, will flow 100% to Texas A&M University to completely rewrite the food pyramid of the United States of America. And so you will have a healthy, you will have a food pyramid that is based on health rather than other things. I mean, for instance, there are some people that say, oh, I don't want to eat beef because it has antibiotics in it. Well, we have drones flying in feedlots in Amarillo, Texas today that go over those feedlots and take the temperature of the cattle with lasers. And when they find one that has a temperature, it separates that steer from the rest of them rather than having to give the whole herd antibiotics every day to make sure that they don't have it, so that that feedlot can then tell you this whole bunch was raised without antibiotics if that's a concern to you. And there's a lot of different things like that. Suffice it to say that we got the best agriculture and nutrition research that exists anywhere. One of the things that we're talking to Ross about very preliminarily is building somewhere in Fort Worth, I guess for lack of a better word, it's called urban agriculture, 10-story greenhouses. Did you know that the Netherlands is the third largest producer of agriculture exports in the world? The Netherlands. Why is that? Because they grow the vegetables for Europe in heated 10-story, 15-story greenhouses and then ship those things out. I told Ross, I said, you give me enough money, Mr. Pro, and I'll make Tarrant County the largest agriculture producing county in the state of Texas, and we won't have a tractor in it. And so he's interested in that, and we're going to the Netherlands later on this summer to take a look at those kinds of things. Suffice it to say, we are real interested, as much as you are interested, in building a presence in Fort Worth that is not equaled anywhere else in the state of Texas, using Texas A&M University resources and using the resources that are here. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure that initial dream of your mayor and John and so many of you come true. We think it is a damn good one, and we're going to make sure that it happens with all of our assets, including Tarleton, the law school, and everything else. We're blessed that we have 7 acres behind Bobby's shop over there, and we're looking at trying to figure out what sort of multi-purpose building do we put there that all of these assets and your assets can use. So surely I got 5 minutes, so I'm gonna ask. Take as much time as you want. How about anybody have any questions? Bobby, you have a question.
Two, testing. Yep.
Chancellor, if you're looking back, what would you describe as your most significant political mistake of your career?
Okay, let me preface it. You remember Perry, that's an easy question for me to answer. You remember Perry beat me barely for lieutenant governor, and I would have eventually become governor like he was, and the state would have been damn sure better off. But anyway, but I will tell you what my biggest political mistake was, and it occurred my first week. Did somebody tell you to ask this question? This occurred my first, this occurred my first week at A&M. We were both freshmen. Rick Perry and I were in the same outfit. He lived 2 doors down from me. And we decided that we were going to go, we didn't have a football game, we were going to go to Waco for a big weekend. That's how much we knew about Texas. We're going to Waco. And so there were 5 of us, and we went to Waco. And the place we stayed at was George Varpal's father. Turns out he was a Baptist minister. Turns out that McLennan County is dry. And we're going, boy, this is not going to be good. Well, the only 2 people that had fake IDs were me and Perry. And so we went to, you know where the kolache place is in West Texas? So we went there, we hitchhiked there, and we bought 2 cases of Schlitz malt liquor Bull. I don't know, they don't even make it anymore, but it's pretty strong stuff in little cans. Perry's pretty much a cheap drunk, still is really. But anyway. So this guy named Kenny Hill was going to pick us up in about an hour. And so here's the Shell station. We would go across the interstate, and there's a big street light still there. And we're sitting there and waiting on Kenny Hill. And we said, we'll have one maybe. And so it was an hour, and we're still drinking these beer. And I mentioned Perry was a cheap drunk. So these bikers come by, said Banditos on it. I'm from South Texas. I know what Banditos is. I know you don't mess with those folks. Perry, had probably never seen a motorcycle before. He was from Haskell, Texas. And he waved at him, but he didn't use all his fingers in that particular way. And they got offended and came back and parked on the other side of the street, swinging chains, had knives and stuff. And your governor is sitting behind me squealing like a pig stuck under a gate. Do something, do something. And I didn't know what to do. And it was cricket season. You know how there's thousands of crickets? So I picked up 2 handfuls of crickets. I don't know why. And I put them in my mouth, and I just started chewing them. And the cricket just ran down, and the guy swinging the chain comes halfway across the road, and he said, "They're too blanked up to fight. Let's get out of here." Now you're asking yourself, why is that your biggest political mistake? I'm going to tell you why. Because if I wouldn't have eaten those crickets, they'd have killed Perry, and I'd have been governor of Texas. Thank you for what Fort Worth means to Texas A&M, and you ain't seen nothing yet. Thank you very much.
Well, Chancellor, after listening to your remarks today, one thing I know for certain is, well, 2 things actually. Number 1 is I will never go bear hunting with you. And second, the success of your law school and that $4+ billion campaign is a direct reflection of your visionary leadership. It is such an honor to have you here today. And it is a tradition of the Rotary Club of Fort Worth to donate a book to the Fort Worth Public Library in honor of your speech today. It will be a heavily edited book, but this is a copy of the book plate that will be in the book. Thank you so much for being here. That was great. All right, just a few announcements to close us out here. We'd like to thank again Downtown Fort Worth Inc. and the Texas A&M Office of the Provost for their generous sponsorships today. Quick announcement, we have a finance committee meeting in the President's Conference Room on the 11th floor. The Tarrant Area Food Bank Volunteer Project, one of the first in-person events, folks, is sold out. We have enough volunteers, so thank you to all of you for signing up for that. And next week, there will be no meeting in observance of Good Friday, but the following week, we will have our brand new police chief, Neil Noakes, with us. So feel free and join us Again, we thank you for being here. Tom, let's pull all the folks from Zoom up. And if you're on Zoom, I'm going to start video here so you can see all the Zoom people online. We can stop sharing, and all the people you can see online, everybody who's online can see the room. We filled the Horizon room. Everybody that's in the room, if you'll wave to people online, everybody online, wave back to the room. We miss you. We love you. Stay safe. Have a great weekend. This has been the Rotary Club of Fort Worth. Thank you.